What would it feel like to be truly, deeply happy, regardless of your circumstances? Did you know that happiness is a choice and not a result? That you can create your life on purpose? Join us now to learn more. This is the Time to Rise and Thrive radio show. And here's your host, mindset coach, and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott.
Hello and welcome. Happy Friday. Happy Friday. How are you doing today? Because I am jazzed. I'm very excited about today's show. So you are with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Jackie Mott, mindset and empowerment expert. And we have a show for you today. So the title of our show is Stand, Embrace Your Inner Powerhouse. Do you know that? Do you know that you have a powerhouse? We're going to talk about all of this, how to tap into that. What does he look like? What is it? What is it? And also, what may be causing you to shy away from that thing? It's going to be a great show. I would really encourage you to grab a pen and paper. And also, I'm going to encourage you, if you're on with us live, go to inspiredchoicesnetwork.com and find the chat room. Feel free to comment. This is a challenging thing, this whole thing about embracing our inner powerhouse. It's a challenging thing. So I would love to hear your thoughts. Find me on Facebook at Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert. Send me an email, whatever. Just get in touch with me and let me know your thoughts. I would really love to dig in and talk about some real life challenges that have to do with this. But I'm going to share with you what I've learned from some of my clients, what I've learned from my own experience as we go through today's show. So what do we do on this show? What do we do on Time to Rise and Thrive? We talk about our subliminal soundtrack. We talk about how to make it work for us rather than against us. We talk about seeing your unique beauty, your value, the contribution that you are to the world. Did you know that? This is going to be so much fun. We're going to dig up some deep stuff today. Are you ready? Are you ready? Okay. So what would it feel like to embody that inner powerhouse, to really embody her? What would it feel like? Or maybe it's him. I don't know. That's completely up to you. Some of us, though, we've been conditioned to believe that we're supposed to be polite. You know, that whole nice girl thing, or that standing in our power would make us unlovable. What if the opposite is actually true? Have you considered that option? What if the opposite is actually true? What if being polite is the thing that's holding you back? What if being polite is causing you to not show up in your authenticity, in your empowered space? What if that polite thing is the thing that is causing you to hold back and actually creating things in your life that are unpleasant? I wonder if that's possible. I guess we're going to find out, aren't we? What if embracing your inner powerhouse and speaking your truth was exactly the thing that would create the possibility of attracting those people who see you for exactly who and what you are, love you and appreciate you for exactly that? Because here's one of the things that we're going to touch on as we go through today. When we are with people who are not being authentic, who are not being truthful, who are not being honest with us about where they stand, doesn't it impact your ability to trust that person? Don't you have a sort of a sense in your body that, they're saying this, but it doesn't feel like that? Don't you get a sense of that? We have to learn to trust our bodies, right? We have to learn to trust our bodies. So before we get too far into this, because this is going to be really meaty and really juicy. And again, I would love to hear your thoughts, your challenges, your feedback on this idea, either while we're on the show today or later. Find me on Facebook and send me a message, make a comment, whatever it is. I would really love to hear your thoughts on this subject. So, what is this subliminal soundtrack that I mentioned? What is that? So, our subliminal soundtrack is simply my terminology for the loop of messages that plays in the back of our minds all day, every day, all day, every day. It's a thing. So, our subliminal soundtrack is created by the little bits of information that we've gathered throughout the course of our lives. So, every conversation you've had, every lesson you've learned, every single experience, every relationship has given you little bits of information that you've gathered together and stored back there on that subliminal soundtrack. Now, we use that information to create our belief systems about ourselves, about the world in general, pardon me, about what it means to love or be loved, about what it means to be in relationship, about what it means to have money or not have money. This thing will affect every area of your life. Your belief systems about anything are what causes you to create your circumstances. Mhm. You are creating your circumstances. We limit ourselves because we have these belief systems that tell us that this isn't possible. It's not possible for me to have that level of honesty, that depth in my relationships with my friends, with my family, with my partner, whatever the case may be. We limit ourselves so we don't allow that to show up. We limit ourselves in our money flows because we believe that money is a certain thing or can only be achieved, that wealth can only be achieved under certain circumstances when the opposite is actually true. So here's the really fascinating part. This is why I love working with this subliminal soundtrack stuff so much. What we believe to be true will be true for us, even if it's based on completely incorrect information. So if you have some sort of message, some sort of limiting beliefs, let's say around money, because money is a really easy one for people to see. Okay. So just really quickly for comparison purposes, let's consider a person who's born into a wealthy family. They've never had to worry about money. They've never gone without anything that they wanted or needed. And then you have another person who's born into a lower income family, and maybe they've had to struggle. Maybe they haven't had the resources, the physical necessities being met as they were growing up. It's very easy for us to understand and perceive that the person that's born into that wealthy family will have a very different relationship with money. They'll have a different mindset. They'll have a different belief system. They very likely have this idea that money is a tool to be used for a certain purpose, right? Like maybe it's meant to create more wealth. Maybe it's meant to help other people. Maybe it's meant to whatever it is. It's meant to create, it gives them the opportunity to create experiences that they wouldn't have without it. But because they've never had to go without, they don't understand what it's like to be that person on the other end of the scale that is born into the low income family without a whole lot of money, without the resources needed, without the mindset that money is a tool. In that case, we're likely working with someone who's got maybe some fear around money, a completely different understanding about what money is and what it can do for us, and also what is possible because of the circumstances they've lived. Do you see what I'm saying? So that's our subliminal soundtrack in action. One side, we understand something in a way that allows us to create more, that opens things up for us. And on the other end, it actually causes us to believe that those things aren't possible for us. Do you see what I'm saying? So, how does this relate to this inner powerhouse? When I was getting ready to do the show, I always do an outline in the morning and sort of let myself ponder. And one of the things that really, really popped up for me in this was this idea of being polite, being the nice girl that people liked. Do you see what I'm saying? And that was very much encouraged when I was growing up. So I've just turned 50. So I'm going to say that I'm sort of like right at the tail end of the baby boom era. And then this Generation X, I think is what they call me, or people like me. So when I was really young, mom stayed home and dad worked. We were still in that sort of in between place before this new way of living where things are so much different. Do you see what I'm saying? That we still had Leave It to Beaver and all of those kinds of shows on TV, the Jetsons, all of that kind of stuff. And isn't it interesting about the Jetsons? I'm just going to go down a rabbit hole. My mother and I were having a visit a few weeks ago, and she mentioned, she was like, you know, we have those Zoom calls now. And isn't it like what it was like on the Jetsons? And it really is. So, okay, there's the rabbit hole. So when I was growing up, it was still that idea of good girl, nice girl. Good girls don't behave that way. Nice girls don't behave this way. And if you are the other, if you are the other, then maybe you're okay. So let's just call it, maybe you're a ball buster. Ooh, maybe you're a ball buster. Maybe you're a woman who has to be like a man to make it in business or whatever it is. Do you see what I'm saying? We had such really cockeyed ideas about what it meant to be a woman at the time that I was growing up and for many of my most formative years. And those are some of the things that were like caught in there. It wasn't that, you know what, being straight, being authentic, being honest with yourself and others actually will allow for depth in relationship. It will actually create bonds. It will actually create trust. Do you see what I'm saying? There was this really cockeyed idea that we were supposed to zip our lips, shut our mouths, and do the right things. And if we didn't, then somehow we would become this bastardized version of a woman that really. So, I mean, oh my God, all of the confusion. What does it mean to be feminine? What does it mean to be strong? What does it mean to be authentic? What does all of that mean? Nothing made sense. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's the programming. That's the programming that myself and a lot of women of, my era were exposed to. So now we're in this position where it's like, wow, this whole different world is in front of us. This whole different world is in front of us. And what could we do if we were willing to actually uncover, unleash, embrace that part of ourselves that is strong, that is honest and clear, that is all of those things? What would it be like? What would it be like to do that? And what would it take for us to show up that way? What would happen if it were okay for us to rock the boat and make some waves? What would it create if we allowed that strength to show up in our lives? This is why I'm so excited about today's show. And it's also one of the big challenges that I have had to work through as I've been growing up, as I've become older, because there's something that shifted. Honest to God, there's something that shifted around that 50 for me. There is this thing that I am craving in my relationships now. I want depth. I want honesty. I want someone that I can be like exactly who I am with. I do not want to walk on eggshells anymore. I do not want to have to censor myself for fear of causing someone else to be upset or to be hurt or to leave. That's it, right? I mean, that is the nugget. I don't want someone that I love to leave. So I shut up and I keep those unpleasant things to myself. But what I don't understand in that space, what I don't understand is that it doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be this thing where you just push it down, push it down, push it down, push it down. Because when you do that, eventually you go boom. There is no way to avoid it. If you are pushing yourself down and avoiding speaking your truth and doing those things that honor you in order to keep someone else happy, I mean, let's be really honest. Do you want people in your world that you have to tread lightly and worry about how they feel? Or do you want people that you can say, this is how I feel right now? We don't have to be jerks. We don't have to even be angry. In fact, if we can do it in a way that is honest and authentic and respectful of both parties, man, the beautiful stuff that can result from that. They're not going to leave. And if they do, someone else will show up who will appreciate you for exactly who you are. What would that feel like? What would that feel like? Mm. All right, I'm getting that finger. It's time for us to head to our break. So you are with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. We are going to dig deeper into this as we come back from our commercial break. So just stick with us for a minute. We will be right back.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email become a host at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at inspiredchoicesnetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott, and today we are talking about embracing that inner powerhouse, embracing that part of you that needs to be expressed, and also that maybe you don't find all that lovable. Maybe you're afraid. For me, that was what happened. I was afraid to express those things. And that created such distance for me in a lot of places. I've always been really good at this in my professional life, because in accounting or in coaching or in speaking or in any of those, there's a responsibility that I feel to be upfront and straightforward. But in some of my really close personal relationships, it was very difficult for me. And I had to learn how to do that. It's still one of those things that I struggle with sometimes, depending on the relationship. It still comes up. So that's one of the really great things that I want to share with you is this personal development stuff. This personal development stuff is a journey. It is not a sprint. It is a marathon. And we can do it anytime. We can take steps toward the thing that we want to become at any time. There is no limitation. There is no age where this becomes inappropriate. I mean, you can maybe do it from the time you were very young, or started at midlife, or anywhere in between. You can even start this when you're, getting much past midlife, like whatever works for you at whatever stage you are in your life right now. You can start to shift this if this is something that has also been a challenge for you. So, what I want us to focus on in this segment of the show is I want us to focus on, like, what does it create when we hold back, and what could it create when we don't? Okay, so what does it create? So we talked about that pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down thing. And very clearly, if you're anything like me, at a certain point that breaks open. There's only so much room. I think of like a pressure cooker, right? And there's only so much room to push things into before it goes boom. So explosions, we wait until we are so upset or so triggered that the person that on the other side of this conversation says one thing, that straw that broke the camel's back, right? They say one thing and then it's just like boom, it all comes pouring out. That is one of the biggest problems with this way of being, where we're not in touch, we're not embracing, we're not honoring our inner powerhouse. It creates stress in our bodies and our beings. It creates misunderstandings. It creates misunderstandings. Have you ever had a conversation and somebody says, "Why didn't you tell me that? Why didn't you tell me that was how you felt?" Have you ever had that kind of a conversation? Because the misunderstandings, then it's like blocks that we're putting, or maybe walls that we're putting up, that don't allow people to get close to us, that don't allow us to have that intimacy, the and I'm not talking about physical intimacy. I'm talking about that thing where I know that I'm safe to reveal exactly who I am. I know that you've got my back. I know that you will love me no matter what. That is intimacy. I'm not talking about sex. That's a whole different type of intimacy. And we can never get there until we can get to a place where we can express ourselves honestly and feel safe. If that other person decides that it's not going to work for them, that's okay. That's okay. We don't want people in our lives that we can't be real with, do we? I don't. And again, this is a big shift that's happened even just in the last few months for me. Big shift. It has become so crystal clear to me that those relationships and the people that it doesn't serve me. It doesn't serve me, and I can't serve them well from a place of hiding my thoughts and my feelings. Now, I don't have to be like at a breaking point or in that place where I just blow up. I don't have to be like that. And if we deal with these things early, before we feel all of that pressure and that, if we deal with them early, then we can address it in a way that is honest and honoring of both that person and ourselves, respecting of both that person and ourselves. Do you see what I'm saying? And here's the really, I'm going to give you a really big gold nugget right now. If the relationship cannot withstand that conversation, you don't have to waste any more time on it. Do you see what I'm saying? We put ourselves into these relationships, and we waste our time. We waste our time and our energy on these situations that don't be what we need. They can't. They can't, because we can't show up authentically in our true self. So the tension in our bodies and our relationships is a natural thing that happens as a result of not embracing this part of you. So I'm going to share with you when this idea really showed up for me in my personal life, was a couple of years ago. I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and I can't remember exactly how she put it, but she was talking about this dark side of Jackie, and she really wanted to see me embrace that side of me. And in all honesty, I was terrified. I was terrified. I was in this place where I was like, um, she kind of scares me. She kind of scares me. And that's where it becomes bastardized. Okay. Because she kind of scared me because the only time that she showed up is when I went boom. Do you see what I'm saying? It's that like, if we do this, then this. And so, because the only time I had allowed that powerhouse to come out in me was when I was triggered and my buttons have been pushed and I would blow up on somebody, usually somebody that I really cared about. And that doesn't feel good for anybody, does it? So because that was the only way that I had been with that part of myself, I was afraid of what would happen. And especially because the circumstances that were happening at that point in my life were really hard, really, really hard, really painful, really difficult to deal with. And I was already feeling like I was just barely holding it together. Do you see what I'm saying? So I was already feeling that I did not want to let that one that blows up into the space where I'm barely holding it together, right? Because who knows what she's going to do? Who knows what she's going to say? Who knows what's going to happen as a result? Am I going to, ruin a relationship with somebody that I care about? Am I going to say something that I can never take back? Am I going, like, how is she going to show up? And that's why it's so very important for us to get to know her or him. I'm saying her, and just follow me on this because her or him just sounds silly. So for me, it's a her, and to allow her to show up, to get to know who she is, to start to embrace her and appreciate her. Do you see what I'm saying? And this can show up in any number of different ways. One of the best ways, I think, for a lot of us mothers to perceive this is that mama bear that will protect her cub. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. If you threaten my baby, God help you. Do you understand that? And that is a really easy place for us to perceive that energy. It's a really easy place because we love our kids. We're comfortable, I think, more comfortable maybe in that role of being the protector of our child than maybe we are in being the protector of ourselves. Yeah. So, mama bear energy. Now, I'm going to share with you that how my inner powerhouse shows up is I have this picture, and it's a warrior. She's a warrior. She is strong. She is smart. She is committed. She is loyal. She is unafraid of anything, really. She is unafraid. She knows the right. She knows the right from the wrong, and she will do what is required to protect herself and the people she cares about. That's how this inner powerhouse shows up for me. When we go to our next segment, we're going to have a conversation about how to figure out how she shows up for you. Now, what happened for me was that, especially under those circumstances, it was important for me to be careful, of what I was saying and doing. There were circumstances going on in my life that it could have been very unwise for me to not be careful what I was saying at the time. Okay. And what ended up happening was that it locked me up. It locked me up. It made me feel like a victim. It made me feel like I had to tolerate unkind behavior from other people. It made me feel like I could not speak my truth. Okay. And what that did was it locked up my throat chakra. I'm still working on it, actually. I have a really pretty singing voice, but I don't sing much right now because it doesn't sound pretty to me right now. It sounds locked up. Okay. So it locked up my throat chakra and it made it difficult for me to express myself in a lot of different ways. I write, I sing, I paint, I do all kinds of things in my normal way of being that express myself. But as this situation dragged on and on and on, and as it was necessary for me to button my lip and keep my mouth shut, it caused all of that to lock up. It caused the expression to lock up. It caused weight gain. It caused all kinds of stress and illness and So I'm working on right now. I am working on, and believe it or not, because I talk a lot, my throat chakra is still not functioning well. It's still not functioning well. And I'm working on it and it's getting better. It takes some time to unwind all of that tension and stress from that space in your body and in your being. So we're going to head to our next break because I'm getting the finger. Man, I've got a lot to say today. Holy cow. All right. So you're with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. Grab that pen and paper because in our next segment, I'm going to give you some steps, some questions to journal or meditate with and see what you come up with so that you can start to actually uncover who this inner powerhouse is for you. So stick with us. We will be right back.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? Our subliminal soundtrack plays in the back of our minds 24/7. It's filled with everything we've ever learned about money, relationships, body, and sexuality, about every single aspect of our lives. If you don't have what you desire, the Subliminal Soundtrack Reset program may be the very key to changing it all. In this 8-week program, designed by Jackie Mott, you'll learn to replace messages that stop your desires with new ones that not only support you in creating what you truly desire, but expand your life to higher levels of joy and pleasure. Go to phoenixcoach.ca today to sign up and begin creating your life on purpose.
How wonderful would it be to carry your favorite Inspired Choices Network host with you throughout your day? Well, now you can. Inspired Choices Network now has its very own mobile app. Our free app offers live streaming shows, along with thousands of podcasts and TV episodes. Our shows cover a wide variety of topics. Whether you're waking up with us, carrying us through the day, and taking us to bed with you, we're always here for you to enjoy. We're easy to find. Just search for Inspired Choices Network in the Apple App Store or Google Play Store.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I am your host, Jackie Mott. Today we are talking about embracing that inner powerhouse that's inside you and maybe shifting your perspective a bit so that you can actually begin to love that side of you that maybe feels a little bit unlovable. Okay, so in our last segment, as we were leaving off, I was talking about this throat chakra locking up and how that impacted me. So I want to share with you really quickly before we get into the steps, so you have an opportunity to grab that pen and paper now. I want to share with you what caused that to sort of open up. I'm not going to give you the details because it's just not important. But a few weeks ago, something happened that brought all of this stuff to the surface that had been, I was trying to keep it in the background. I didn't want to talk about this. I didn't want to share about these things that were happening. It was very uncomfortable. It was very uncomfortable. But at a certain point, it was, you must address this thing. You must address this thing. You have no choice now. And I did. And it was amazing to me, the shift that started to take place. So that's where this started to unlock. It started to unlock because I had no choice but to address the situation that I had been avoiding. Do you see what I'm saying? And in so doing, it was necessary for me to start to speak my truth about what had been happening and how it had impacted me. And here's the thing, the more that I tried to avoid speaking my truth, the more locked up I got, the harder it was for me to speak my truth in my relationships, especially my closest relationships. And that was really hard. It was very hard, and it cost me. It did. So the beautiful thing about when we do this is it's very freeing. It helps us establish boundaries and that respect and honor for ourselves. Okay. The really important thing to understand is that it's not that I'm saying this because I want to hurt you. It's that I'm saying this because I love myself. Isn't that a different energy? I love myself. I honor myself. And therefore, this is what it is. So it's not about hurting the other person. And I think that was one of the things that got kind of messy in my head about this whole thing. It's not about causing harm to anybody. It is about actually honoring both of us and respecting both of us. Isn't that awesome? Okay. So we've only got a few minutes before we have to head to our second break. And God knows, I don't want the finger from Haley 3 times in one show. So now we're going to get into this whole idea of what can help us uncover this side of ourselves that maybe we've been uncomfortable with, that maybe we haven't been willing to embrace, like I wasn't willing to embrace before because she scared me. All right. So the first thing, so I'm going to ask you, these are things that I would like for you to journal about, meditate about, think about, have a nice hot bath. I don't know what your process is, whatever your process is, where you're able to get into that really sort of quiet space and in touch with the stuff that's inside. Whatever you do, that's where I would like you to do this. Okay. So the first question, when have I stood up for myself or someone else in the past, even if it was hard or uncomfortable? So one of mine was actually, it was the mama bear. It was the mama bear. There was this place that we were, and there were lots and lots and lots of people. My son was outside playing with a bunch of other kids his age. They were riding bikes, whatever. And there were some teenagers that were sort of in that whole group. So it was it was a fairly big group of young people. And one of them came to where I was, and they knew me quite well. And they said, okay, Jackie, there's, Eric is out there. Oh, that's my son. Anyway, Eric is out there and this is what's happening. And they got some drugs out there. Well, it did not take more than a few seconds before me to be out the door and marching to where they were. And it was kind of funny because the person who had the drugs, who had brought them into that place, had a van. And as they saw me coming, they pulled out of there in the van. Do you see what I'm saying? When you embody that energy, people know, they know not to mess with you. They know. Do you see what I'm saying? So when was a time that you embodied that, whatever it is for you, when you embodied that space of honor and respect, and I'm not going to tolerate things. And you did it well. Okay. So we're not talking about boom, or maybe we are. Why not? Why not think about both? Okay. So when was a time when this inner powerhouse showed up for you? When was a time that it showed up and you're pleased with the results? And when was a time that it showed up and you're kind of like, oh boy, do that, do that. So we're shifting the exercise. I love this. All right. So shift the exercise, do whatever works for you. So that's the first question. The second question would be, what did that look like? So I want you to be really detailed in this, okay? I want you to be detailed about the circumstances. Like I said, this was what was going on, and this was what was happening, and this was my response, and this is what happened, right? I want you to be really detailed in that. And whatever comes to you as you are writing about this or typing or whatever you're doing, whatever comes to you, I really would like for you to make note of it, okay? Even if it seems kind of not related or anything. I just want you to know whatever comes to you without judgment. This is a curiosity. We are not coming at this from a place of good or bad or right or wrong. We're coming at this from a place of curious. What was that? What did it look like? Was it that I blew my stack? Was it that I said something that was really difficult? Was it that I handled myself with poise and grace? Was it that I really lost my shit? What was it? Okay. And be straight with yourself without judgment. All right. So you're being curious. What did it look like? Question number 3. How did it feel? So this is why it's really actually a great idea for us to do the comparison. How did it feel to blow your stack? I mean, there's that relief maybe that comes from the pressure being released. But how did it feel? Did it feel good? Did it involve you saying something unkind? Did it involve you being calm and cool and honest? Okay, how did it feel? Was it scary? Was it empowering? What did it look like? Haley says, I hate losing my shit. I always regret it. That's the thing. That's the thing. Okay, we can't take those things back. So if we wait until the pressure cooker blows, we are far more likely to say something that we are later going to think, oh God, I wish I never said that, or hurt somebody's feelings or whatever. I mean, in some cases, I suppose it can result in physical violence, and we never want that, right? So how did it feel for you? How did it feel for you to stand in your power and say something difficult? And what was the result? Okay. 4th question. If you are someone like me that has struggled with this feeling uncomfortable or even scary, what is it about that causes you to feel uncomfortable or afraid? I was clear on mine whenever I had really tapped into that in my personal life. I mean, I don't blow my stack usually in business, but in my personal life, when I had allowed her, it wasn't that I had allowed her, it was that I couldn't stop it from happening. So there's a lack of empowerment. There's a lack of feeling in control of yourself when you lose your mind like that, when you lose your shit. And that was what caused me to be uncomfortable and afraid of embracing that part of myself. And the beautiful thing, when you embrace her, when you allow her to show up, there's no need for her to blow her stack. There's no need for that pressure to build and build and build until you blow. Do you see what I'm saying? That's your power position. That's your power position. I'm not going to lose my cool. I'm going to say it before I get to that point, right? So what is it about showing up that way that feels uncomfortable or scary or whatever it is for you? Question number 5. This is where it gets really beautiful. What would it be like if I could embrace that part of myself and integrate it into my way of being? What would it be like to be that whole person who is made up of so many different parts and pieces. What would it be like to just be you, authentically, honestly you? What would it feel like to be able to have those difficult conversations and know that you're going to be okay? You're going to be okay one way or the other, whether they stay, whether they go, whether they embrace it or they don't, whether they take it well or they don't. Do you see what I'm saying? What would it feel like to know? I watched one of my shows. I do that all the time just to sort of like see what I'm doing because I don't really pay attention. Haley and I had a laugh about that not very long ago. I don't really pay attention. I just show up and do what I do. So it feels important for me to go back and watch them sometimes to sort of get a feel for, did I do that well or not do that well, or where could I get better and all that kind of stuff. And I lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? I think that I was talking about this sort of showing up in your wholeness and in your authenticity. When we have pieces of ourselves that we don't allow, that we don't like, that we don't embrace, then there's always those pieces that aren't there and we don't feel complete, do we? Right? It's important for us to get really respectful of every part of us. There is beauty in every part of you. Did you know that? How would it feel to be fully integrated? Huh. Uh-huh. Do you see what I'm saying? It's exciting. It's exciting. And then when we show up that way, it's so much is possible. So much is possible that is not possible when we hold back. All right, we got to go to our last break. So you're with me on Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott. Today we are talking about embracing and even learning to love that part of yourself that maybe hasn't felt so lovable for you. So stick with us for just a minute. We'll be back to wrap up the show right after these messages.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? This question came to Jackie Mott when she was trying to find peace and purpose in the wake of tragedy. She began to understand that a lot of her pain and choices had been the result of how she perceived herself and her place in the world. And she set about creating a new subliminal soundtrack that would support her in creating a life of abundance, joy, and fulfillment. To learn more about how she did that and how you can do the same, join Jackie on her radio show, Time to Rise and Thrive, every Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What do you tell yourself when you're not listening? Our subliminal soundtrack plays in the back of our minds 24/7. It's filled with everything we've ever learned about money, relationships, body, and sexuality, about every single aspect of our lives. If you don't have what you desire, the Subliminal Soundtrack Reset program may be the very key to changing it all. In this 8-week program, designed by Jackie Mott, you'll learn to replace messages that stop your desires with new ones that not only support you in creating what you truly desire, but expand your life to higher levels of joy and pleasure. Go to phoenixcoach.ca today to sign up and begin creating your life on purpose.
This is the Time to Rise and Thrive show with mindset coach and facilitator of change, Jackie Mott. To participate in the program, join our live studio audience in our chat room at InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. For more information, visit phoenixcoach.ca, where you can follow Phoenix Coaching online. Now, back to the program.
Hello and welcome back to Time to Rise and Thrive on Inspired Choices Network. I'm your host, Jackie Mott, and today we are wrapping up this conversation about learning to love that part of yourself that maybe you've been hiding away or been hesitant about allowing to come out, that inner powerhouse inside you that is just waiting for you to allow her or him to show up and help you make yourself full and whole. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I've learned is that practice makes perfect. It can be very difficult, especially if you've been somebody who has struggled with allowing her to show up. It can be very difficult. It can be scary. It can be that place of, you know, I don't know why this is coming to me, but you know, that stress sweat, that thing that happens sometimes when you're just so worried about what could happen. And here's what I want you to understand. It will get easier as you do it. It will get more comfortable as you embrace it, as you honor yourself more and more and more. It will become easier, and it will almost become difficult for you to do the other thing. It will almost become difficult for you to tolerate those things, those situations, those people who don't allow you to show up in your truth and your authenticity. It's a beautiful thing. And if you're someone who's struggling with this, I mean, please feel free to reach out. Please feel free to reach out. Find me on Facebook, Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert. Go to my website, send me a message, whatever the case may be, okay? Because this is one of those things that, man, when you get it, when you start to open this up, when you start to understand it, the freedom of just being you, you're spending so much energy on the holding back and not expressing. What could you do if you stopped doing that and you could use that energy toward creating something beautiful for yourself? It's so crazy. It's so crazy when we think about all of the energy it takes for us to hold ourselves back. Keep ourselves in that pretty little box, you know, that lovable, likable, polite, all of that kind of stuff. It takes so much energy to hold ourselves there. And once we start to walk in this different way of being, we free up that energy. We free up our emotions. It's brilliant and beautiful. And man, I would just love it if everybody could understand this and start to embrace it. So a few last things to consider. Do you really want people in your life that don't make you feel like you can express yourself? Do you really want to have to walk on eggshells, or do you want people who love and appreciate you for exactly who you are in your world? What do you want? What do you want? It's completely up to you. So that's what I've got for you today, my friends. That's what I've got. The quote that I would like to leave you with is this: there are times when standing in your power may not be wise. When you find yourself in a position like that, find another way to express your thoughts or feelings, even if it's hard or feels uncomfortable. Speak your truth with respect for yourself and any other parties, and you will open up the possibilities for deeper, more fulfilling relationships. If they leave, let them. Someone else will come along who can appreciate you in all your glory. Yay. All right, my friends, that's it. That's what we've got for you today. We will be back next Friday and every other Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern live. So 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central, 11 Mountain, and 10 Pacific. Next week's show is on, what do you call it? Christmas Eve. Yay. So next week's show, we are going to be talking about unwrapping the gift of you. Yes. So we'll be talking about shifting our perspective so that we can actually see and understand the contribution, the gift that you are to the people that you love and to the world in general. How to walk in that. Oh my God, it's yummy. Yes. All right. So thank you so much for being with us. Again, you can find me on Jackie Mott, Mindset and Empowerment Expert. You can find me here every Friday afternoon or morning, depending on where you are in the world. You can find me all over the place, and I would love to hear your thoughts on any of the shows that you've enjoyed, or maybe it's an idea that you really didn't like. I would love to hear your thoughts. So thanks so much for joining us today. Thank you so much for the contribution you are to my world, because it brings me so much pleasure and so much joy to join you on Fridays every week. Thank you so much for joining us on Time to Rise and Thrive. Have a great week.
Thank you for joining us for Time to Rise and Thrive radio show. Jackie Mott will return next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 12 noon Central, 11 a.m. Mountain, and 10 a.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Have a fantastic week, and remember, it's your time to rise and thrive.